Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another Paradise Found video. I will be reading chapters 4 and 5 from part 3 today, simply because both chapters are rather short and I didn't want to have another 5 or 6 minute video, so I'm going to combine the two. Chapter 4 is called The Testimony of Prehistoric Climatology, and Chapter 5 is called The Testimony of Paleontological Botany. Chapter 4, The Testimony of Prehistoric Climatology. Now, I don't take Latin, so please excuse my pronunciation here, but it says Ver Iliad erat ver magnus agabat orbis, and it means the spring was a great spring, the world was moving, and that is by Virgil. One of the most startling and important of the scientific discoveries of the last 20 years has been that of the relics of a luxuriant Miocene flora in various parts of the Arctic regions. It is a discovery which was totally unexpected and is even now considered by many men of science to be completely unintelligible. But it is so thoroughly established, and it has such an important bearing on the subjects we are discussing in the present volume, that it is necessary to lay a tolerably complete outline of the facts before our readers. And that's by A.R. Wallace in 1880. Thus far, then, we have found theoretical geogeny demanding a location at the pole for the first country presenting conditions of Eden life. We have found the requisite astronomical conditions to give it an abundance of light. We have found the geologists attesting the former existence of such a country. We must now interrogate prehistoric climatology and ascertain whether this lost land ever enjoyed a temperature which admits of the supposition that here was the primitive abode of man. The answer to our question comes, not from one, but from several sources. First, geogeny gives us an almost irresistible antecedent probability. For if the earth from its earliest consolidation has been steadily cooling, it is hardly possible to conceive of a method by which any region once too hot for human residence can have become at length too cold, except by passing through all the intermediate stages of temperature, some of which must have been precisely adapted to human comfort. Again, paleontological botany shows that in Europe in tertiary times, this hypothetical cooling of the earth was going on, and going on in the steady and regular way postulated by theoretic geogeny. But if a telluric process as essentially universal as this was going on in Europe, there is no reason why it should not have been going on in all countries, whether to the north or to the south or to the east or to the west of Europe. But we are not left to inferences of this sort. It is now admitted by all scientific authorities that at one time the regions within the Arctic Circle enjoyed a tropical or nearly tropical climate. Professor Nicholson uses the following language. In the early tertiary period, the climate of the northern hemisphere, as shown by the Eocene animals and plants, was very much hotter than it is at present, partaking indeed of a subtropical character. In the middle tertiary or Miocene period, the temperature, though not high, was still much warmer than that now enjoyed by the northern hemisphere, and we know that the plants of the temperate regions at that time flourished within the Arctic Circle. Mr. Grant Allen says, one thing at least is certain, that till a very recent period, geologically speaking, our earth enjoyed a warm and genial climate up to the actual poles themselves, and that all its vegetation was everywhere evergreen, of much the same type as that which now prevails in the modern tropics. Alluding to those distant ages, M. Le Marquis de Nadillac remarks, under these conditions, life spread freely, even to the pole. Similar is the language of Kroll. The Arctic regions, probably up to the North Pole, were not only free from ice, but were covered with a rich and luxuriant vegetation. Kierl holds that at the very pole it was then warmer than now at the equator. Professor Oswald Here's calculations would possibly modify Kierl's estimate to a slight degree, but only enough to make the circumpolar climate of that far-off age a little more Edenic than is that of the hottest portions of our present earth. Sir Charles Lyell, who in the discussion of this subject is characteristically cautious and uniformitarian, does not hesitate to say, "The result then of our examination, in this and in the preceding chapter, of the organic and inorganic evidence as to the state of the climate of former geological periods, is in favor of the opinion that the heat was generally in excess of what it now is. In the greater part of the Miocene and preceding Eocene epochs, the fauna and flora of Central Europe were subtropical, and a vegetation resembling that now seen in Northern Europe extended into the Arctic regions as far as they have yet been explored, and probably reached the pole itself. In the Mesozoic ages, the predominance of reptile life and the general character of the fossil types of that great class of vertebrata indicate a warm climate and an absence of frost between the 40th parallel of latitude and the pole, a large ichthyosaurus having been found in latitude 77 degrees 16 minutes north. Averaging the above views and estimates of scientific authorities, we have at the pole, in the age of the first appearance of the human race, a temperature the most equable and delightful possible, and with this we may well be content. Now I'm going to move on to Chapter 5, the testimony of Paleontological Botany. Damals von dort aus, die ich aus diesem Bildungsherd für die Pflanzen südlicher Breiten im hohen Norden hat eine strahlenförmige Verbreitung von Typen stattgehabt. And that's by Professor here, and it means, at that time, from there, i.e., from this source of formation for the plants of southern latitudes in the far north, a radial distribution of types took place. It is now an established conclusion that the great aggressive faunas and floras of the continents have originated in the north, some of them within the Arctic Circle. Principal Dawson, 1883. All traditions of the primeval paradise require us to conceive of it as possessed of a tropical flora of the most beautiful and luxuriant sort, as adorned with every tree that is pleasant to the sight or good for food. Any theory, therefore, as to the site of Eden must of necessity present a locality where this condition could have been met. How is it with the hypothesis now under consideration? To reply that a polar Eden is scientifically admissible in this respect would be to state but a small part of the truth. So much might unhesitatingly be affirmed in view of the facts presented in the last chapter. Given in any country on the face of the "globe, a long continued tropical climate and a tropical vegetation may well be expected. Anything else would be so abnormal as to require explanation." But the study of paleontological botany has just conducted to a new and entirely unanticipated result. The best authorities in this science, both in Europe and America, have lately reached the conclusion that all of the floral types and forms revealed in the oldest fossils of the earth originated in the region of the North Pole, and thence spread first over the northern and then over the southern hemisphere, proceeding from north to south. This is a concept of the origin and development of the vegetable world, which but a few years ago no scientific man had dreamed of, and which to many intelligent readers of these pages will be entirely new. Its profound interest, as related to the present discussion, will at once be seen. Without attempting a chronological history of this remarkable discovery, or in any wise assuming to assign to each pioneer student his share of the credit, we may say that Professor Asa Gray of America, Professor Oswald Heer of Switzerland, Sir Joseph Hooker of England, Otto Kuntz of Germany, and Count G. de Supporta of France have all been more or less prominently associated with the establishment of the new doctrine. Sir Joseph Hooker's studies of the floral types of Tasmania furnished data before lacking for a general translatitudinal survey of the whole field. He was struck by the fact that in that far-off southern world, the Scandinavian type asserts his prerogative of ubiquity. Though at that time he seems not to have divined its significance, he clearly saw the paleontological and other vestiges of the great movement by which the far north has slowly clothed the north temperate, the equatorial, and the southern regions with verdure. In one passage, he describes the impression made upon him by the facts in the following graphic language. When I take a comprehensive view of the vegetation of the Old World, I am struck with the appearance it presents of there having been a continuous current of vegetation, if I may so fancifully express myself, from Scandinavia to Tasmania. Light on this problem of the far south was soon to come from the far north. In 1868, Professor Oswald Heer of Zurich published his truly epoch-making work on the fossil flora of the Arctic regions, in which he modestly yet with much confidence advanced the idea that the Bildungsherd, or mother region, of all the floral types of the more southern latitudes was originally in a great continuous Miocene continent within the Arctic Circle, and that from this center the southward spread or dispersion of these types had been in a radial or outraying manner. His demonstration of the existence in Miocene times of a warm climate and of a rich tropical vegetation in the highest attainable Arctic latitudes was complete and overwhelming. Our latest geologists are still accustomed to speak of his result as one of the most remarkable geological discoveries of modern times. His theory of a primeval circumpolar mother region whence all floral types proceeded is also at present so little questioned that today, among representative scholars in this field, the absorbing and only question seems to be, who first proposed and to whom belongs the chief honor of the verification of so broad and beautiful a generalization? Here, then, is a new and wonderful light just thrown upon the problem of the site of Eden. Theology and some of its representatives had anticipated the geologists in teaching that the earth's vestment of vegetation originally proceeded from one primeval center, but it is the glory of paleontology to have located that center and to have given us an evidence scientifically valid. Wherever man originated, the biologist and botanist now know where was the cradle of some of the world's tenants. Whatever the direction of the first human migrations, we are now clear as to the direction of that great invasion of Arctic plants and animals which in the beginning of Quaternary ages came southward into Europe. But it may be that the testimony of paleontological botany is not yet exhausted. What if it should at length appear that along with the plants, prehistoric men, and civilized men at that, must have descended from the mother region of plants to the place where history finds them, without any reference to or apparent recognition of the great anthropological interest of such a question? At least one botanist of Germany, reasoning from botanical facts and postulates alone, has reached precisely this conclusion. This savant is Professor Otto Kuntz, who has made special studies of the cultivated tropical plants. What other botanists had found true of the wild flora in continents separated by wide oceans, he finds true of domesticated plants. But the problem of the spread of these plants from continent to continent raises peculiar and most interesting questions. Taking the banana plantain, which was cultivated in America before the arrival of Europeans in 1492, Professor Kuntz asked, in what way was this plant, which cannot stand a voyage through the temperate zone, carried to America? The difficulty is that the banana is seedless and can be propagated in a new country only by carrying thither a living root and planting it in a suitable soil. Its very needlessness is evidence of the enormous length of time that it has been cared for by man. As the professor says, a cultivated plant which does not possess seeds must have been under culture for a very long period. We have not in Europe a single exclusively seedless berry-bearing cultivated plant, and hence it is perhaps fair to infer that these plants were cultivated as early as the middle of the diluvial period. But now, as to its transportation from the old world to the new, or vice versa, it must be remembered, he says, that the plantain is a tree-like herbaceous plant, possessing no easily transportable bulbs, like the potato or the dahlia, nor propagable by cuttings, like the willow or the poplar. It has only a perennial root, which once planted needs hardly any care. After discussing the subject in all aspects, he reaches the twofold conclusion. First, that civilized man must have brought the roots of the plant into any new regions into which it has ever come, and secondly, that its appearance in America can only be accounted for on the supposition that it was carried thither by way of the North Polar countries at a time when a tropical climate prevailed at the North Pole. Well, that is the end of today's reading. I will hopefully get to chapter 6 in the next week or two. I may actually be combining chapters 6 and 7 because I'm looking at them right now and they look relatively short also. Yeah, so it'll be chapters 6 and 7 in my next reading. But anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my YouTube membership, I will leave a link in the description box for that, or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.